begin, we want to say, both Walt and I want to say, professionally and personally, we are thrilled you're here.
Thank you.
After all this time.
I am too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Thanks for being
So we're going to start off with kind of an easy one. Just this week, you surpassed Microsoft in market valuation, and we thought you might have a thought or two about that.
For those of us that have been in the industry a long time, it's surreal, but it doesn't matter very much. It's not what's important. It's not, what makes you come to work in the morning. It's not why any of our customers buy our products. So I think it's good for us to keep that in mind and just remember what we're doing and why we're doing it.
But I just have to
But it is a little surreal.
It is a little surreal. And I remember talking to you right when you were coming back to Apple. Mm-hmm. We talked a number of times, and if I remember correctly, the company was sort of on its way to oblivion.
It was on the rocks, yeah.
So could you ever have imagined something like this? Even though I know market cap isn't why people buy our products or anything, it's just like, what did it feel like when it happened?
Well, Apple was about 90 days away from going bankrupt back then in the early days, and it was much worse than I thought when I went back initially. But there were people there who I'd expected all the good people would have left. Uh-huh. And I found these miraculous people, these great people, and I said, why? I tried to ask this as tactfully as I could, but why are you still here? and a lot of them had this little phrase. They said, because I bleed in 6 colors.
Yeah. Which
was the old 6-color Apple logo. And that was code for, because I love what this place stands for, or at least stood for. And that just made all of us want to work that much harder to have it survive and have those values survive and bring it back,
So we want to spend most of this session talking about your thoughts from your really interesting position, because the conference is sort of about the juncture of technology and media, and you're sitting there right at that juncture in a lot of ways. I want to spend most of the session talking about where you think things are going in the future. But there have been some controversies lately that we want to ask you about. And I guess I'd start with Flash. Mm-hmm. And your sort of war with Adobe. So you published a long, open letter, something like, what did you call it, Thoughts on Flash or something like that? So you've clearly stated your case there. But even if, here's my question, even if everything you say in there is true about its inferiority as a technology and other things being available to replace it and already replacing it, is it really fair or the best thing for consumers who buy, say, an iPad or an iPhone to just be abrupt? In other words, if we're in a transition where there are better things in Flash, why be abrupt and cut off consumers?
Sure. Well, 2 things. Number one, I'll come back in a minute to what really happened there, because what you said isn't exactly chronologically correct. But Apple is a company that doesn't have the most resources of everybody in the world. And the way we've succeeded is by choosing what horses to ride really carefully, technically. We try to look for these technical vectors that have a future and that are headed up. And technology, different pieces of technology kind of go in cycles. They have their springs and summers and autumns, and then they go to the graveyard of technology. And so we try to pick things that are in their springs. And if you choose wisely, you can save yourself an enormous amount of work versus trying to do everything. And you can really put energy into making those new emerging technologies be great on your platform, rather than just okay because you're spreading yourself too thin. So we have a history of doing that. As an example, we went from the 5-inch floppy disk to the 3.5-inch floppy disk with the Mac.
Before other people, right?
We were the first to do that. We made the 3.5-inch floppy disk popular. Sony invented it, and we put it in the first products. And there were some good reasons we did that. We got rid of the floppy disk altogether in 1998 with the first iMac. We also got rid of these things called serial and parallel ports. And we were the first to adopt USB, even though Intel had invented it. You first saw it in mass on iMacs. And so we have gotten rid of things. We were one of the first to get rid of optical drives with the MacBook Air. And I think things are moving in that direction as well. And sometimes when we get rid of things like the floppy disk drive on the original iMac, people call us crazy.
Or at least premature, maybe.
No, they call us crazy.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes you just have to pick the things that look like they're going to be the right horses to ride going forward. And Flash looks like a technology that had its day, but is really is waning. And HTML5 looks like the technology that's really on the ascendancy right now. And to incorporate Flash into systems is a lot of work. There's no smartphone shipping with Flash on it now, as you know.
But you know that there will be, right?
Well, you know, there's going to have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and every 6 months it gets updated. So I'm sure that eventually they will. And there's a lot of issues with that in terms of battery life and, you know, security and other things. But more importantly, HTML5 is starting to emerge. You know, there's been an avalanche of people that have said, we're doing HTML5 video. And the video looks better, and it works better, and you don't need a plug-in to run it. And so while 75% of the video in the web may be in Flash, you know, 25% going to 50% very shortly is also available in HTML.
So do you say that to consumers? I mean,
Yeah, but it's
besides technology, it's consumers.
I think consumers outside of the Valley and our industry aren't having this issue.
Except when they hold up their iPad and they go to a web page and there's like a hole there where a video would be.
You know, there are...
They don't know, they may not know what Flash is.
There are holes in some websites, but those holes are getting plugged real fast. You know, the holes that exist now are ads. So I understand that's a problem for some people.
Not entirely.
Not entirely, but that's the #1 holes that are there.
And what about the other community that I think is impacted by this, and that's developers? Because what I think a lot of the coverage of this Flash issue has overlooked is that, yes, Flash is a video container, and there are other video containers that actually have a very rising share, H.264 and native HTML5, but it's also a development environment, and there are entire websites, some of them quite beautiful, written on a Flash platform.
An even more popular development environment was HyperCard, and we were okay to axe that.
It wasn't more popular than Flash, was it?
Oh, in its day, sure it was.
On your platform, right?
No. HyperCard was huge in its day because it was accessible to anybody. Right. So, I mean, you could be a HyperCard developer.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't know about that.
But, you know, we have over 200,000 apps on the App Store. So something must be going right in terms of attracting developers to our platform.
So your goal, just to finish this up, your ultimate goal is to get rid of Flash or just to move?
No, see, our goal is really easy. We didn't start off to have a war with Flash or anything else. We just made a technical decision that we weren't going to put the energy into getting Flash on our platform. We told Adobe, if you ever have this thing running fast, come back and show us, which they never did. And, but we think we're not going to use it. And that was it. And we shipped the iPhone, and it doesn't use Flash. And it wasn't until we shipped the iPad and it didn't use Flash that Adobe started to raise a stink about it. We didn't raise a stink about it. We never mentioned the word Adobe or Flash or anything else. We like Adobe. We have a lot of common customers with CS, you know, their Creative Suite software and things like that. So we weren't trying to have a fight. We just decided not to use one of their products in our platform. And so, you know, they started to say a lot of bad things about us in the press and this and that, and it went on for months. And that's why I wrote Thoughts on Flash, was because we were trying to be real professional about this and weren't talking to the press about it. We didn't think it was a matter for the press. And we finally just said, enough is enough. we're tired of these guys trashing us in the press over this. And so we wrote down the reasons why, technically, we didn't choose flash. And they are just as true today as they were when we wrote it, as they were 6 months or a year before that.
And what would happen, just so this, I promise, we're going to move on to the next thing you don't want to talk about, but on this flash thing, what would happen? I mean, you know, it's an open market. You do have competitors, particularly in the smartphone side, and you may have significant competitors in the tablet side. We have a couple of companies showing non-iPad tablets here this week.
This is America.
This is America, that's right. Well, it's LA, but it's part of America, yeah. What if the market says, hey, you know, it's important enough to us to be able to run not just these videos, but whole websites. You know, there's a great photo editing site, I don't know if you've ever used it, called Picnic. It's a lovely site. It really works like a smooth, slick, native client on your computer, but it's written in, it's a flash site on the web. I mean, it probably uses other technologies too, but it doesn't work on the iPad. What if people say, you know, the iPad is crippled in this respect?
Well, you know, well, I'd say two things. Number one, things are packages of emphasis. Some things are emphasized in a product, some things are not done as well in a product, some things are chosen not to be done at all in a product. And so different people make different choices. And if the market tells us we're making the wrong choices, we listen to the market. I mean, we're just people running this company. We're trying to make great products for people. And so we have at least the courage of our convictions to say, we don't think this is part of what makes a great product. We're going to leave it out. Some people are going to not like that. They're going to call us names. It's not going to be in certain companies' vested interests that we do that, but we're going to take the heat because we want to make the best product in the world for customers. And we're going to instead focus our energy on these technologies, which we think are in their ascendancy and we think are going to be the right technologies for customers. And you know what? They're paying us to make those choices. That's what a lot of customers pay us to do, is to try to make the best products we can. And if we succeed, they'll buy them. And if we don't, they won't. And it'll all work itself out.
So,
you know, so far I'd have to say that people seem to be liking iPads, you know? So, I mean, we've sold one every 3 seconds since we launched it. So I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Takes you 3 whole seconds to sell one? Can't you do better?
Right now, I'm just worried that it's taken us 3 whole seconds to make one.
So,
because we could be selling them faster, it seems like.
Obviously, you have shy and retiring opinions about this. You've been emailing a lot lately. This is riveting to a lot of people. I know it sounds silly outside of Silicon Valley, but a lot of people are riveted to what's happened in your communication style? Because you've been emailing people, you've been emailing people at Valleywag and stuff like that.
Well, he never identified himself as a journalist, but I was working late one night. It actually was like 2 in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
And I was I'm making a presentation next Monday, and I was working on that presentation, and this guy starts emailing me these obnoxious emails, and I'm just enough of a sucker that I want to like straighten this guy's thinking out. So I start to respond to him, and he responds back. He's not, he's no dummy, and he's responding back, and we got into this conversation. It was kind of entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
And then he publishes it. So
Well, a lot of your
that's
emails
okay.
are getting published.
Yeah, I know.
You just like to email now? What's happened?
But you are like even just customers, not just that
customers.
exchange. So they're very short a lot of times.
I've actually always done a bit of that.
Okay, all right. So you had a prototype of one of your products that was wound up in a bar, and have you heard of? Has this come to your attention? I don't know, because you're the CEO, and I don't know whether lower levels are handling it, but. And then there was a blog that paid somebody some money. We don't really know the whole story because the investigation, I guess, is underway with the police. But I wanted to ask you your reaction to sort of a duality about this, because I think there are people in the public and in journalism who don't approve of somebody of sort of checkbook journalism, if you want to call it that, you know, the way that was done, if what we know is true. And I want to keep stressing that because I don't know that we know the whole thing yet. But on the other hand, then the police go and they don't issue a subpoena, which somebody's lawyers could fight in court about taking this guy's computers, but they go and get a search warrant and they grab them. And one presumes, and again, I don't know, but I know if they took my computer, there's notes and things for many companies and many sources and stories and things that wouldn't necessarily be relevant to whatever the police are looking at. It was just like a giant grab of a journalist's sort of assets of all the background of what that guy was doing.
Yeah, or a guy's assets, at least.
Well,
You could debate what a journalist is, but yeah.
we could debate it, but I mean, we think bloggers are journalists, you know. We run a blog, so we think bloggers are journalists. And the New York Times runs blogs, the Wall Street Journal runs blogs. I don't think that's much of a debate.
And we come into work wanting to do the same thing today as we did 5 or 10 years ago, which is build the best products for people. You know, there's nothing that makes my day more than getting an email from some random person in the universe who just bought an iPad over in the UK and tells me the story about how it's the coolest product they've ever brought home, you know, in their lives. That's what keeps me going. And it's what kept me going 5 years ago. It's what kept me going 10 years ago when the doors were almost closed. And it's what will keep me going 5 years from now, whatever happens. So I don't see why you have to change if you get big.
Well, but it isn't about you changing, but are you going to be in different businesses? I mean, as you pointed out yourself, 3 years ago you weren't in the phone business.
Who knows?
You do. You
No,
have
we
some idea.
don't know. You know,
Come on, Steve. You don't have any thoughts about whether there are
Look
other.
at our-
Like you're going to become. Apparently, you're going into the ad business. You were never in the ad business. That's a new business for you, right?
sure. We're going into the ad business because we want to help our developers make some money so that they can keep providing free or really low-cost apps to customers. That's why we're doing it. We're not going to make much money in the ad business. We're doing it for our developers.
And why wouldn't you just why wouldn't it be just okay for other people who are already in the mobile ad business or are moving into it to have done it rather than you go and buy this company?
Oh, because we don't think they're going to be able to make our developers as much money because the way they're going about it sucks.
Okay.
You know, you get a mobile
Always
ad.
temperate.
He is
in your-
not letting it
No.
slide here.
You get a mobile ad and you touch the banner. See, let me start at the beginning.
Go ahead.
Something really interesting is happening on mobile phones. They're not mirroring desktops or laptop PCs in that people are not spending their time searching. They're not doing searching anywhere near as much as they do on PCs. We've got all the data. We know this. They're spending their time in apps. So for whatever reason, if people want to find out that restaurant to go to, they're not going to their search engine typing in Japanese in Palo Alto. They're going to Yelp or whatever other app they want to go to find out if their airplane's on time or this or that or this or that.
Right.
And I don't know why it's different than on PCs. I think I do, but I'm not sure. I think it's because there never was one place with 200,000 apps where a ton of them were free and the rest of them were really inexpensive for PCs. I think this app thing's an entirely new phenomenon in my lifetime, in your lifetime. So I think people are using apps, well, we know they are using apps way more than they're using search. So if you want to make developers money, you put ads in the apps.
Right.
The ads and apps now are banners, and you touch them, and what is the first thing they do?
They take you to a web page.
Yeah, they rip you out of your app, send you to the browser, and all of a sudden, if you're not interested in that ad, you've got to figure out a way back to your app, and even if you can do that, you've got to figure out, in some cases, how to get back to the exact place in your app. If you're playing a game, you're probably not going to make it back to the same place. So wouldn't it be great if mobile ads didn't take you out of the app, but rather took over the screen, gave you this great experience of an interactive ad, but also combining the emotion of television with video. And anytime you wanted, you could hit a little button, it takes you right back to where you left off, right where you left off in your app. People would explore those.
And you don't have faith that anyone else can do it.
Sure, but nobody else is doing it. And so we could build it into the OS so the apps don't have to do it. We can make it so that an app developer can add these interactive ads in their apps with 30 minutes worth of work versus working with every advertiser to do some custom thing in their app, which is crazy. And because we own the OS, so we can put it right in the bowels of the system. Could somebody else figure out a way to do that? Maybe they could, but they weren't, so we did.
Okay, I think we need to wrap this up, but one theme that we want to ask everybody here, and one speaker at great length, is privacy. There seems to be this...
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, I don't know if Mark's
He's
here, but... hey, Mark. So there seems to have been a spate of mistakes or, false starts or things that have to do with privacy where companies have had to retreat, whether it's things with Facebook, things with Google Buzz.
Or Google's Wi-Fi collection recently.
Yeah, that Wi-Fi collection, that inadvertent, Talk to me about that. How is privacy looked at differently in Silicon Valley than in the rest of America?
No, Silicon Valley's not monolithic. We've always had a very different view of privacy than some of our colleagues in the Valley. We take privacy extremely seriously. As an example, we worry a lot about location in phones. And we worry that some 14-year-old is going to get stalked and something terrible is going to happen because of our phone. And so, as an example, before any app can get location data, we don't make it a rule that they have to put up a panel and ask because they might not follow that rule. They call our location services and we put up the panel saying, this app wants to use your location data. Is that okay with you? Every time they want to use it. And we do a lot of things like that to ensure that people understand what these apps are doing. That's one of the reasons we have the curated app store. We have rejected a lot of apps that want to take a lot of your personal data and suck it up into the cloud. A lot. So we're really old. A lot of people in the Valley think we're really old-fashioned about this. And maybe we are, but we worry about stuff like this.
But aren't you also going to be moving more into cloud-based things?
Are we going to be moving more into cloud-based things? Sure. But
and doesn't that inevitably get you? No.
Privacy means people know what they're signing up for in plain English and repeatedly. That's what it means. I'm an optimist. I believe people are smart. And some people want to share more data than other people do. Ask them. Ask them every time. Make them tell you to stop asking them if they get tired of your asking them. Let them know precisely what you're going to do with their data.
Okay.
That's what we think.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we open up the...
We have a little, we're running a little late, but we certainly have time for some questions. I think actually you got there first, if I saw correctly.
Warren Lee with Canaan Partners. Steve, thanks for showing up. A few years ago, I was here watching you and Bill Gates speak, so I think that was a very historic moment, so very happy that you came back and came to speak with us again. A few years ago, you gave a commemoration speech at Stanford to the graduating class. Now, a few years later, and a couple years wiser, would you add anything else to that speech that you gave a couple years ago?
That's a good question.
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea. Probably I would just turn up the volume on it because the last few years have reminded me that life is fragile. So.
Thanks. Over there, yeah.
Hi, Steve. Chris Fralick from First Round Capital. The question is around Apple's terms of services, and there were some changes that were recently made around that made some of your developers think that Apple might want to exclusively own the analytics and the advertising business. And I just wondered if that is the case, and if it's not, could you help clarify when we might understand?
Yeah, sure. We found a really interesting thing. We're real naive about this stuff. So one day we read in the paper that a company called Flurry Analytics has detected that we have some new iPhone and other tablet devices that we're using on our campus. And we thought, what the hell? And the way that they detected this was they're getting developers to put their software in their apps, and their software is sending out information about the device and about its geolocation and other things back to Flurry. No customer has ever asked about this. It's violating every rule in our privacy policy with our developers. And we went through the roof about this. So we said, no, we're not going to allow this. This is violating our privacy policies, and it's pissing us off that they're publishing data about our new products. So we said that we're only going to allow these analytics that don't give device information and that are solely for the purposes of advertising. Solely for the purposes of advertising. In other words, if a developer needs to put some analytics in their app that sends some information out to an advertiser so that they can make some money, because we're not going to be the only advertiser, there's others, and we're not banning other advertisers from our platforms, they can do that. But they can't send data out to an analytics firm who's going to sell it to make money and publish it to tell everybody that we have devices in our campus that we don't want people to know about. That we don't need to do. Okay. Is that clear?
It is, but there's a valid use for an app developer wanting to know those things for their own, to make their own app better, to know where people use it, to know where it breaks.
You know,
that they may not have.
There's no excuse for them not asking the customer whether it's appropriate to send that personal, private data to an analytics firm, which they were not doing. And secondly, after we calm down from being pissed off, then we're willing to talk to some of these analytics firms.
Great. Thank you.
But it's not today.
He's good. He's doing good. All right.
Hi, Michael Lambert. I'm an owner of Village Roadshow Pictures, which is a film production
I know you well.
company. We have
You guys
Sex and
make
the
some
City
great
out
movies.
this weekend. And I also own movie theaters, 1,000 screens around the country, the 5th largest circuit in the country. So I'd like you to put your Disney hat on for a moment. Not that you have a Disney hat, but being influential in the Walt Disney Company.
I'm a Disney cheerleader. I have a hat.
So, so wearing that hat, my question is around the consumer coming to the content versus the content chasing the consumer. And this is something that troubles me a lot in the business, because as a producer of films and a copyright owner, it seems to me we've made a very good business all these years of making the consumer come to us. Forcing him to sit on the couch and interrupting him with commercials was a very good business for the content creator. Maybe not so convenient for the consumer, but very good for us. The economics around interrupting the consumer with commercials was good for us. Making the consumer pay to go to a movie theater is good for the producer of the content. The technology which allows the consumer to get immediate access to this it changes those economics, and you wear both hats. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about how we preserve the value of the content and still the convenience.
Thanks for asking that, because frankly, I was going to ask you about when will the media company.
It's really interesting that the opportunities of technology are huge for content owners, in my opinion. They always have been. And as an example, the way that we market movies is undergoing a radical shift. It used to be that you spent a fortune running advertising on TV to run your trailers. And now we can reach that same audience much more effectively on the web, through whether it's Facebook, through whether it's targeted communication with loyalty groups, whatever it might be. You know, when we went to the music companies, we said, "Who is your customer?" And they said, "Oh, it's Best Buy and Target and what was the record company? Tower Records. That was it. And Tower Records. They thought their distribution channel was their customer. You know, in the same way that people making movies might think that your movie houses are their customer, but they're not. Their customer is the viewer, just as the music company's customer was the listener. The music companies had no connection with their listeners whatsoever. And so what changed in the music industry was not the back end of the business, the A&R, the seeking out and developing of artists and talent over, you know, which is just as important now as it ever was. What changed was the front end of the business, the distribution and marketing became, was able to be done in a much more effective way, bypassing the distribution channel and going direct to the end user. And that's what's going to happen in visual media as well. And the marketing's going to get a lot more interesting, more precise, cheaper, efficient, but the content is going to be just as valuable, if not more valuable in the future. So what the studios need to do is is to embrace this new front end of the business, to start knowing who their customers are, and to start building mechanisms to communicate with them and tell them when their new product is coming out. And also to let them watch it wherever they want, whenever they want.
And when do you think that'll happen? I'm just curious, because you know,
it's starting to happen now in television, because people, the studios feel, same guys, right, that make movies and TV shows, they feel less protective, or they're more willing to experiment with their television properties than they are their film properties. So you're starting to see it in television. You can get TV shows now, in some cases for free, the day after their broadcast. In some cases, in our case, we sell them the day after their broadcast. And you're starting to see it more and more with film too. So I think that is changing a lot in the next 24 months.
Okay.
I even think there's going to be a way to watch a first-run movie at home before it comes out on DVD if you're willing to spend a bunch of money.
A bunch of money.
A bunch of money.
I guess over here.
Hey, Steve. Don McCaskill from SmugMug. You may remember a couple years ago we talked about this, but I think it's even more pressing. I love my iPad. My 2-year-old loves my iPad, and I buy the truck versus car analogy. But it seems like there's a sort of a gaping hole in that analogy right now. You have great syncing of contacts and mail and calendar. I can buy my apps and update them over the air, but I still have to tether to get what is arguably the birth of this platform, which is music and videos on my devices. And my mobile devices...
that's not exactly true. You can buy music and get it on your device over the air, and you can buy video and get it on your device over the air. There's iTunes Store is on all those devices, and it does flow over the air.
But I have a large iTunes library that I built up thanks to you over the last 8 years or
No, what you'd like to do is share your library of media amongst your various devices.
Yeah.
It's not buying it
without a wire.
Yeah, without a wire. It's not buying it on that device, because you could buy it all on that device.
Yeah.
It's the tethering
No,
that I think is
syncing.
the issue.
It's the sharing.
Yeah.
You want to share your content that you've bought or somehow otherwise acquired amongst your various devices.
And you can't do that today, right, with iTunes?
You can do that today with a wire. You cannot do that today without a wire.
So when can
we need to work harder on that.
You do?
We do.
Thank you.
You really can't even do it with a wire, because it'll blow away. It'll say, well, if you're going to sync with this PC or this Mac.
No, but if it's your content, you can do it all real easy. It just takes a wire.
So you're going to do better.
We need to do better.
Okay. Anytime soon?
We're working on it.
Over here.
Hi, Steve. David Roth. I love my iPhone. My wife loves her iPhone. And we have no concerns about the speed of the AT&T network or the data robustness. Our concern is that we can't make a phone call on it.
Yeah.
We live in Houston, not San Francisco or New York.
Oh.
And the network has gotten so bad in the last year that we can't be on the phone for more than a minute without dropping a call. And if we're on the phone for 5 minutes, the call drops 3 times every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is somebody from Apple working on that?
Well, Somebody from Apple's talking about that. I mean, we don't have people that, climb up on poles and adjust antennas because we don't know anything about that. But yeah, you can bet we're doing everything we know how to do.
Can I expect relief soon?
I'll tell you what I'm told, and I'm told this by credible people who are extraordinarily open and honest with us about their problems, so which makes me tend to believe people when they tell me things. When I know little about this stuff technically, this is not my area of expertise. To make things better, people reallocate spectrum. They take spectrum that they weren't using or were using for something else and allocate it to this problem. And they do things like increase the backhaul. So they put in gigabit Ethernets instead of T1s that they had. And they put in more robust switches to switch the data. Things in general, when they start to fix them, get worse before they get better. That's what I'm told. And if you believe that, things should be getting a lot better soon. So, a serious answer to your question, I am told that a lot of places are getting a lot better, certainly by the end of this summer. And I believe the people that are telling me that truly believe it and are high competency people.
And if they don't?
Then they won't. We'll see.
Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Yeeses. I'm the CEO of SugarSync. We're a cloud service that allows you to synchronize your data between all of your
I know you
devices.
guys.
Great. My question is related to the one just a couple questions ago. We're very excited about the possibilities of interacting with your content, with your cloud-based content on the device, really as a smoother way to get access to your data so you don't have to tether. And we do a pretty good job of that now, but I think we could do an even better job if we could have access to the file system on the iPad or the iPhone to have a true round-trip syncing capability.
Mm-hmm.
Any plans to do that?
There's a lot of things we're working on. So we should chat.
Okay, great.
Okay, last three questions, very quick. Start here, and that's
Right there.
Allison Sheridan from Raytheon. I bought the movie Up on Blu-ray DVD from Disney.
Thank
and
you.
It came with, you're welcome. It came with a digital download. That was great, so I could put it on my portable devices. So I bought my iPad, and I put it on there, and I bought the VGA adapter, and I plugged it into my projector. And because I bought everything, I couldn't play it because high-definition copy protection stopped me. Had I ripped it to reverse copy protection, downloaded it from BitTorrent, I would have been able to play it. Can you talk at all about how HDCP is helping the anti-piracy effort?
We didn't invent this stuff.
But you did deploy it.
Well, the problem is the content owners, and in particular Hollywood, doesn't want the same thing to happen to them as they saw happen with Napster to the music industry. So they are desperately grasping at anything they can to try to keep that from happening. Can't blame them. And it's not their business. I mean, that they're not in the business of copy protection, they're in the business of content creation. So sometimes they grab the right straws and sometimes they grab the wrong straws. But if we want to host any of their content, if we want to sell any of their content, they are setting some of the rules about what we have to do, and if we don't want to do them, we try to persuade, but if we fail at persuasion, then we have a simple choice.
I guess maybe explain the irony to them of their choice in that case.
Yes, I understand, and I feel your pain.
Thank you.
Hi,
Very
Steve.
quick.
Shervin Peshawar from Social Gaming Network. I wrote you a letter when I was in 6th grade with a new design of a Macintosh, and I'm still waiting for my response. Seriously though, I think games are huge. I built my whole, on the iPhone and iPad, I built my whole company at Social Gaming Network on that vision. And I'd like to hear from you what your vision for gaming is on all of the new devices in the post-PC era that you've talked about. And I have a couple of suggestions very quickly on the iAd platform and on the social gaming network that you're launching. One is a unified platform for currency for games and apps. And two is similar types of offer platforms in iAd, like OfferPal, that have really helped take social gaming on Facebook to such big numbers.
So, what's your question?
Your vision of social gaming.
Your vision of
gaming?
Social gaming or gaming.
Well, clearly iPhone plus iPod Touch have created a new class of gaming. And it's a subset of casual gaming, but it's surprising how good some of the games are, and some of them are even approaching console gaming in their sophistication and graphics. And the typical console games, as you know, the software costs $30 to $40 a game. On an iPhone or an iPod Touch, the games cost between free and, $3, $4. So the market's exploded. And we think it's terrific. We didn't set out to compete with Nintendo or Sony on their PSP, but we are now a significant part of that market. And it's not just the iPhone, it's the iPod Touch as well, which, as an example, the last holiday season, we sold as many iPod Touches as we sold iPhones. It doubled our volume. So it's not an insignificant player in this as well. And now we have the iPad, a third product on that same platform. And so it's proving to be really exciting in the gaming area. And there are now over 50,000 game and entertainment titles on the App Store. Many, many of them for free. So we take it very seriously. And we were the first folks to get OpenGL ES 2.0, 1.0 and 2.0 on a phone, and all of these kinds of things. If you have any other suggestions for us, I heard the two you made, let us know. Because we're trying to do the right things to enable more gaming and a lot of stuff in the social gaming area.
The last one is the microtransactions.
No, Shervin.
Plenty.
You can ask him yourself.
Dan?
I got it.
Hi, I'm Dan Simpkins, CEO of Hillcrest Labs. Steve, what was a topic that was noticeably absent tonight in your talk was television. And you talked about how to make the iPad and the iPhone, you need to throw out the human interface in order to really make those products interactive. Do you think it's time to throw out the interface for television, the classic up, down, left, right, and bring in a new human interface to make television truly interactive? And if so, when is Apple going to do something in that arena?
The problem with the television market, the problem with innovation in the television industry is the go-to-market strategy. The television industry fundamentally has a subsidized business model that gives everybody a set-top box for free or for $10 a month. And that pretty much squashes any opportunity for innovation because nobody's willing to buy a set-top box. Ask TiVo, ask Replay TV, ask Roku, ask Vudu, ask us, ask Google in a few months. So all you can do, Sony's tried as well. I mean, Panasonic's tried, a lot of people have tried. They've all failed. So all you can do is add a box onto the TV system. You can say, well, gosh, I noticed my HD TV has a bunch of HDMI ports on it. One of them is coming from the set-top box, so I'll just add another little box with another one. Well, you just end up with a table full of remotes, cluster full of boxes, bunch of different UIs, and that's the situation we have today. The only way that's ever going to change is if you can really go back to square one and tear up the set-top box and redesign it from scratch with a consistent UI across all these different functions, and get it to the consumer in a way that they're willing to pay for it. And right now, there's no way to do that. So that's the problem with the TV market. You know, we decided, what product do we want the most? A better TV or a better phone? Well, the phone won out, but there was no chance to do a better TV because there was no way to get it to market. What do we want more, a tablet or a better TV? Well, probably a tablet, but it doesn't matter because if we wanted a better TV, there's no way to get it to market. The TV's going to lose until there is a viable go-to-market strategy. Otherwise, you're just making another TiVo. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the fundamental problem. It's not a problem with technology. It's not a problem of vision. It's a fundamental go-to-market problem.
But obviously, in the phone area, you were able to recreate that go-to-market strategy by working with a carrier. So does it make sense to partner with a cable operator?
Well, then you run into another problem, which is there isn't a cable operator that's national. There's a bunch of cable operators. And then it's not like there's a GSM standard where you build a phone for the US and it also works in all these other countries. No, every single country has different standards, different government approvals. It's very what's the right
daunting
word?
challenge.
Tower of Babelish, you know, or that's not the right word. Balkanized. It's very balkanized. So I'm sure smarter people than us will figure this out. But that's why when we say Apple TV is a hobby, that's why we use that phrase.
Steve, thank you.
Everybody,
Thank
Steve
you very
Jobs.
much.
Thank you.